Flashman and the Redskins by George MacDonald Fraser. Copyright 1982 by George MacDonald Fraser. This full-length reading of the Flashman series by George MacDonald Fraser was recorded by arrangement with Dutton Signet, a division of Penguin Books USA Incorporated, and was produced in 1995 by Books on Tape Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Neither this recording nor any part thereof may be reproduced or used for any purpose without prior written authority from Books on Tape Incorporated. This book is read by David Case. Explanatory note. A singular feature of the Flashman Papers, the memoirs of the notorious bully of Tom Brown's school days, which were discovered in a Leicestershire sale-room in 1966, is that their author wrote them in self-contained installments, describing his background and setting the scene anew each time. This has been of great assistance to me in editing the papers entrusted to me by Mr. Paget Morrison of Durban, Flashman's closest legitimate relative. It has meant that as I opened each new packet of manuscript, I could expect the contents to be a complete and self-explanatory book, needing only a brief preface and footnotes. 6 volumes have followed this pattern. The 7th volume has proved to be an exception. It follows chronologically, to the very minute, onto the 3rd packet, published in 1971 under the title Flash for Freedom, with only the briefest preamble by its aged author. I have therefore felt it necessary to append a resume of the 3rd packet at the end of this note, so that new readers will understand the events leading up to Flashman's 7th adventure. It was obvious from the early papers that Flashman, in the intervals of his distinguished and scandalous service in the British Army, visited America more than once. This 7th volume is his Western Odyssey. I believe it is unique. Others may have taken part in both the '49 Gold Rush and the Battle of the Little Bighorn, but they have not left records of these events, nor did they have Flashman's close, if reluctant, acquaintance with 3 of the most famous Indian chiefs, as well as with leading American soldiers, frontiersmen, and statesmen of the time, of whom he has left vivid, and it may be revealing, portraits. As with his previous memoirs, I believe his truthfulness is not in question. As students of those volumes will be aware, his personal character was deplorable, his conduct abandoned, and his talent for mischief apparently inexhaustible. Indeed, his one redeeming feature was his unblushing veracity as a memorialist. As I hope the footnotes and appendices will show, I have been at pains to check his statements wherever possible, and I am indebted to librarians, custodians, and many members of the great and kindly American public at Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Minneapolis, Fort Laramie, the Custer battlefield, the Yellowstone and Arkansas rivers, and Bent's Fort. GMF. Introduction. In May 1848, Flashman was forced to flee England after a card scandal, and sailed for Africa on the Balliol College, a ship owned by his father-in-law, John Morrison of Paisley, and commanded by Captain John Charity Spring, M.A., late Fellow of Oriel College. Only too late did Flashman discover that the ship was an illegal slave trader, and her captain, despite his academic antecedents, a homicidal eccentric. After taking aboard a cargo of slaves in Dahomey, the Balliol College crossed the Atlantic, but was captured by the American Navy. Flashman managed to escape in New Orleans, and took temporary refuge in a bawdy house, whose proprietress, a susceptible English matron named Susan Willink, was captivated by his picaresque charm. Thereafter Flashman spent several eventful months in the Mississippi Valley, frequently in headlong flight. For a time he impersonated, among many other figures, a Royal Navy officer. He was also a reluctant agent of the Underground Railroad, which smuggled escaped slaves to Canada, but unfortunately the fugitive entrusted to his care was recognized by a vindictive planter named Omohundro, and Flashman abandoned his charge and beat a hasty retreat over the rail of a steamboat. He next obtained employment as a plantation slave driver, but lost his position on being found in compromising circumstances with his master's wife. He subsequently stole a beautiful octoroon slave, Cassie, sold her under a false name, assisted her subsequent evasion, and with the proceeds of the sale fled with her across the ice floes of the Ohio River, pursued by slave catchers, who shot him in the buttock. However, he succeeded in effecting his escape, and Cassie's, with the timely assistance of the then Congressman, Abraham Lincoln. With charges of slave trading, slave stealing, false pretenses, and even murder hanging over his head, Flashman was now anxious to return to England. Instead, mischance brought him again to New Orleans, and he was driven in desperation to seek the help of his former commander, Captain Spring, who had been cleared of slave trading by a corrupt American court and was about to sail. Flashman, who throughout his misfortunes had clung tenaciously to certain documents from the Balliol College, documents proving the ship's slaving activities, with which Flashman had hoped to blackmail his detested father-in-law, now offered them as the price of his passage home. Captain Spring, his habitual malevolence tempered by his eagerness to secure papers so dangerous to himself, agreed. At this point, with our exhausted narrator quaking between the Scylla of United States justice and Charybdis in the person of the diabolic Spring, the third packet of the Flashman Papers ended, and the next chapter of his American adventure begins. The 49er. Chapter 1. I never did learn to speak Apache properly. Mind you, it ain't easy, mainly because the red brute seldom stands still long enough, and if you've any sense you don't either, or you're liable to find yourself studying their system of vowel pronunciation, which is unique, by the way, while hanging head down over a slow fire or riding for dear life across the Jornada del Muerto, with them howling at your heels and trying to stick lances in your liver. Both of which predicaments I've experienced in my time, and you may keep 'em. Still, it's odd that I never got my tongue round it, for apart from fleeing and fornication, slinging the bat is my strongest suit. Speaking the local language. British Army slang. Well, I speak 9 languages better than the natives, and can rub along in another dozen or so. And I knew the Apaches well enough, God help me. I was even married to one for a spell. Bands, beads, buffalo dance and all. And a spanking little wild beast she was, too, with her peach-brown satin skin and hot black eyes, and those white doe-skin leggings up to her thighs, with the tiny silver bells all down the sides. I can close me eyes and hear them tinkling yet, 60 years after, and feel the pine needles under my knees, and smell the wood smoke mingling with the musky perfume of her hair, and the scent of the wild flowers outside her bower, the soft lips teasing my ear, murmuring, "Make my bells ring again, Pindalikoyi." Literally white eye, a white man. Ay me, it's a long time ago. But that's the way to learn a language, if you like, in between the sighs and squeals. And if it didn't happen in this case, the reason is that my buxom savage was not only a great chief's daughter, but Mexican hidalgo on her mother's side, and inclined to put on airs something peculiar, such as speaking only Spanish in preference to the tribal dialect of the common herd. They can be just as pert and hoity-toity in a Mimbreno wiki-up as they can in a Belgravia drawing-room, believe me. Fortunately, there's a cure. But that's beside the point for the moment. Even if my Apache never progressed far beyond Nuechichi Itzan, which may be loosely translated as, "Come here, girl," and is all you need to know, apart from a few fawning protestations of friendship and whines for mercy, and much good they'll do you. I still recognize the diabolical lingo when I hear it, that guttural hissing mumble with all its z and zl and r noises, like a drunk Scotch Jew having trouble with
Sample complete. Ready to continue?